This is an interesting and unbelievable story of love. Before starting the story, please subscribe my YouTube channel and press the bell icon. Julia had always been reserved, the kind of woman who held her secrets close. She was devoted to her family, her career, and her own tightly woven routine that left little room for surprises. Her life was safe, structured, and comfortable, but it was often lonely. Most of her friends had moved away or were busy with their own families, and she found herself becoming increasingly isolated, though she rarely admitted it to anyone, especially not to herself. One late summer weekend, Julia's brother Mark came to visit with his young son, Ethan. Mark had recently gone through a tough divorce, and Julia was thrilled to spend time with her brother and nephew. Ethan was 7, a bright and curious child who seemed to bring warmth and energy wherever he went. After a long, bustling family dinner, Julia retreated to her room, grateful for a quiet moment. She allowed herself to unwind, escaping into her own thoughts, daydreams, and memories. Unbeknownst to her, young Ethan had wandered down the hall to say goodnight. The door creaked slightly as he peeked in, his eyes wide with innocent curiosity. Julia's heart skipped a beat, and she quickly composed herself. Ethan, startled, scurried off, and Julia felt a deep pang of embarrassment. Yet she convinced herself that, to a young child, it was likely an unremarkable moment he would soon forget. Later that evening, as Julia sat on the porch, her mind still lingered on the incident. She felt exposed in a way she wasn't used to. The quiet of the night was comforting, but left her unsettled. She wished there was someone she could talk to, someone who would understand the complexities she so often buried. It was then that she heard footsteps behind her. She turned to see Alex, Mark's best friend, walking over. Alex had been a close family friend for years, practically another brother to Julia, but something had changed over the years. They were both older, wiser, and had shared so many quiet, meaningful conversations during family gatherings and holidays. He had a calm, grounding presence, and that night, he seemed especially in tune with her mood. He settled into the chair beside her, looking at her with that gentle gaze he always seemed to have. "Jules," he started, using the nickname only he ever used, "you look like you've got the whole world on your shoulders tonight." Julia laughed softly, trying to brush off the question, but something about his eyes, warm and kind, invited her to open up. "It's nothing," she said, but then sighed. "It's just, I don't know. Do you ever feel like you're so used to being alone that you don't know how to let anyone else in?" The vulnerability in her voice surprised even her, and she glanced away, feeling suddenly exposed. But Alex didn't look away. Instead, he leaned closer, resting his hand on hers, a simple gesture, yet one filled with comfort and understanding. "Yeah, I get that," he replied softly. "Sometimes, it's easier to shut people out, even when all you want is to let someone in." Julia looked up at him, seeing a depth in his eyes she hadn't noticed before. His gentle honesty felt like a lifeline, a reminder that maybe she wasn't as alone as she thought. "I think I've been hiding for a long time," she admitted, her voice almost a whisper. "It's just hard to be vulnerable, you know?" Alex nodded. "It is. But you don't have to hide with me, Jules." They sat in silence, letting the words settle between them. The evening air was cool and still, and the stars above seemed to cast a quiet blessing over their conversation. Julia felt a warmth growing inside her, an unexpected desire to lean into him, to let him see all the parts of her she had kept hidden. "Can I tell you something?" she asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. "Anything." She took a deep breath, feeling her heart race, and shared a story she had never told anyone. She spoke about her fears of loneliness, the walls she'd built around her heart, and how, lately, she'd been questioning if she'd spent too much time pushing people away. Her words tumbled out, raw and unfiltered, and for the first time, she felt seen. Alex listened, his eyes never leaving hers, his hand warm and steady on hers. When she finished, he gave her a gentle smile. "Jules, you deserve someone who sees you, who knows you. Someone who doesn't want you to hide." He paused, searching her face. "And I want to be that person if you'll let me." A blush crept up Julia's cheeks. She felt an overwhelming mix of emotions: fear, excitement, and a deep, unfamiliar tenderness. But looking at Alex, she knew she was ready to take that leap. Leaning toward him, she closed the space between them, their foreheads gently touching. It was an intimate, quiet moment, as if they were both standing at the edge of something profound. They spent the rest of the night talking, sharing long-forgotten memories, secret dreams, and little confessions. They laughed, reminisced, and held each other, basking in a closeness that had been years in the making but had blossomed suddenly, beautifully. In the days that followed, Julia found herself feeling lighter, more open, as if she'd shed a heavy weight. Alex became her confidant, her best friend, and soon her partner. Together, they embraced the journey of love with all its quirks, complexities, and quiet intimacies. They learned to laugh together, to support each other's dreams, and, most importantly, to let down their guards. Julia realized that the love she'd longed for had been right beside her all along, waiting for her to be ready. And with Alex, she knew she was finally home, a place where she could truly be herself, flaws and all, in the warmth of a love that was as patient as it was profound.